Welcome to the subject traffic management and accident investigation. For this video, the discussion is focused on the first part of the history of transportation, which is discussed in light of the principles of traffic management and accident investigation. Well, once again, your lecturer, Darlito Bernard Delizo, is welcoming you back if you have already watched the earlier video. But if it is your first time to watch this subject, then you are welcome in this discussion. So before moving on to our proper or main topic, let's take a look for a while on the wisdom coming from the Word of God. Well, he said that ang Diyos ay siya ang gumagabay at nagproprotect doon sa daanan ng mga matutuwid at mga tapat sa Kanya. Sino nga ba yung mga matutuwid? Ito yung mga sumusunod doon sa mga tamang gawain ayon sa salita ng ating Panginoon sa Biblia. And on the other hand, the faithful are those people who are committed and fully devoted in loving and obeying the Lord. Kaya sa ating buhay na ito, whether we are traveling physically or we are traveling spiritually sa ating buhay na ito, it is but right to ask the Lord for help so that we will be able to do what is just and we will be able to be faithful sa Kanya. And once again, ang ating Panginoon ay faithful. Kung ano man ang Kanyang sinasabi, ay Kanyang gagawin. Kaya nga, kapag tayo ay matuwid at tapat sa Kanya, we are assured that the guidance and protection of the Lord is with us. Now, moving on to the main topic, we have the indispensability of traveling. It is mentioned and it is known that traveling is already an inseparable part of human existence. Since time immemorial, ang mga tao ay nagta-travel na. So basically, during the olden times, most of the people, nung wala pang mga civilization, ay mga nomadic ang mga tao. No? May mga nomads na they are wandering or constantly wandering for foods na kung saan may pagkain, doon sila. Pag naubos nila, lipat ulit sila sa mga lugar na mayroong pagkain. And on the other hand, yung totoong mga nomads, yung mga pastures or mga pastors na tinatawag natin, mga pastoral nomads. So these pastoral nomads, they move with their herds, okay, wherever there is a green grass. At kung winter time, nandun sila sa mga valley kasi nandun yung mga green na mga halaman. Kapag yan naman ay summer, akyat sila sa mga bulubundukin or mga hilly places at doon naman sila maninirahan until mawala ulit yung mga green grass sa area na yan. And of course, today meron din tayo mga modern nomads. Ito yung mga tao sa ating panahon na wala silang fix or permanent na tirahan. Ito yung mga tao na palipat-lipat ng lugar kung saan pwede silang maghanap buhay. So, of course, because of the indispensability of traveling, well, ang tao ay gumawa ng maraming mga inventions, naghanap ng maraming kaparaanan upang mapaganda ang kanyang traveling at siya'y makarating sa kanyang nais patunguhan kay ayon sa oras na nais niyang siya ay makarating doon. Well, ano nga ba yung ginamit ng mga tao sa transportation? Unang-una, man use his own power. Kahit tinatawag natin yan, the history of manpower transportation. Well, nung unang panahon, people were only traveling by foot. And common sense will show that if we are traveling by foot without any devices, without any bags, well, if we are only relying doon sa ating shoulder at sa ating kamay, kukunti lang yung ating madadala. So, because of that, people began to devise things just like the carrying pool na they believe that the carrying pool ay nagsimula yan sa mga Chinese people. At yan din ay ginagamit din dito sa Pilipinas. So at least with the use of the carrying pool, two person will be able to carry a heavier loads as they travel. On the other hand, again, the Chinese are believed to be the origin of the balance pool. Ito yung magdadala ka ng maraming gamit in both ends of the pool. At yan, at least mas madali at mas marami yung madadala mo sa iyong pag-travel. Well, of course, the balance pool is most common now in the Eastern Asia. So when you say Eastern Asia, kasama na dyan ang China, ang Japan, ang Taiwan, okay? Kasama na rin ang Korea, ang Philippines, although we are in the Far East at dito sa Southeast Asia. Pag sinabi mong Near East Asia naman, or yan naman ay doon sa may bandang Middle East area. At doon naniniwala na nagsimula ang mga civilization, although the Chinese believe or the Chinese insist that nagsimula rin sa kanilang civilization, kaya marami sa mga inventions sa ating mga technologies or sa ating mga machines na they claim that they are the origin of those inventions. So moving on, aside from those things, ay gumawa rin ng tao ng kanyang mga more or less mga baggage, no? Kung saan niya dadalhin yung kanyang mga gamit. So pinakauna dyan, man started to use what you call the thumb line and backpack. Ano nga ba yung backpack and the thumb line? Well, that is utilized to carry loads on the back with strap passing over the chest. At least dito ay yung dalawang kamay ay free para humawak ng ibang bagay or free ito para makalakad ng maayos yung isang tao na nagta-travel by foot. Then of course, the thumb line ay very common yan sa mga mountainous areas. In fact, in the country, in the Philippines, ay marami rin mga tao until now gumagamit pa rin ng ganyang gamit or ganyang thumb line and backpack in carrying their loads. Now, again, there are problems as to how to load or how to move large and heavy objects. So, people of our time are wondering how the olden peoples, how the ancient people, particularly the people of Egypt and other places in the world, kung paano nila naitulak at nadala yung mga malalaking mga bato na kanilang mga ginamit para mag-construct ng mga malalaking mga struktura just like the Egyptian pyramids. So, according to archaeological records, well, they have proven and that the olden peoples were using log rulers. So, yung log rulers ay nagpa-function siya na parang gulong na at least ay nakakabawas ito ng resistance at saka ng friction. So, at least yung mga heavy loads or mga large rock can now be pulled or can now be pushed by at least a lesser power or lesser number of people. So with the rulers, ang tao ay nag-create ng mga carts with sleds, no? Para parang mga box na paglalagyan ng mga heavy loads. So with that, to move the cart na may mga laman, well, gumamit sila ng mga rulers. Kaya ang tawag natin dyan ay mga sleds on rulers. Now, on the other hand, yung sled runners na tinatawag natin, if we are going to take a look on the front portion of the sleds, ito ay nag-curve yan. So yung curve na yan is para mabawasan yung resistance as they pull or as they move the cart. And pag nabawasan yung resistance, mabawasan yung friction, so therefore, mababawasan yung manpower na kailangan. So yan, ang tawag natin dyan ay runners, ang tawag natin. Then eventually there are some other devices na ginawa rin ng tao yung tinatawag nating travoy. Okay? So that is single S, the travoy. Yan, nung parang pinag-X lang na kahoy, no? It serves as a platform on which the burdens are placed, no? Diyan lalagay yung mga kakargada, pwedeng hilain niya ng tao or pwedeng hilain niya ng mga hayop. Okay, so these are some of the eight other ancient manpower transportation. Well, of course, the AMAIDs on the right is just a what you call it, a good vibes for that, no? Para sa ating pang good vibes lang yan. So eventually makita natin na yung karwahe, nilagyan na nila ito ng fixed na wheel nito. So at least mas marami na yung pwedeng makarga dahil wala nang resistance ng mga sleds or mga runners. In our modern time or in our time, marami pa rin gumagamit ng kanilang mga sariling mga power, no? Basically, yung mga bisikleta, no? They are still using their own power, the manpower natin. And there are still places, even in the country, na uso pa rin yung naghihila ng mga kariton or mga karwahe. Okay? And of course, may mga nagbibisikleta, yan, mga superpower mga yan, ano? Then, yan, mga superpower sa India siguro yan. Okay, so of course, these are some of the ways and means how man use his own power in transporting something. Okay, so moving on, while man have discovered or invented devices na pwede niyang hilain at pwede niyang itulak for traveling purposes or for transporting purposes, of course, may limit yung lakas ng katawan ng tao unless ikaw si Goliath or ikaw si Samson. So, ano nangyari? People began to tame or to domesticate animals na hindi lang pagkain kundi makatulong ito, itrain nila para maging pack animals na tinatawag natin. Pag sinabing pack animals, okay, ito yon yung nilalagyan nila ng yoke para hihila ng mga tawag natin na mga karwahe. So in these AMAIDs, you have the ox or the cattle, no? First domesticated in Mesopotamia. So you are wondering where's that Mesopotamia? That is in Middle East, and it is known today as the Iraq. And again, the ox are used as draft animals to draw war chariots, and in some parts of Africa, uh, they are used as pack animals and for riding purposes. Of course, in the Philippines, we also have that kind of thing, and there are still people who are using that in the rural areas, particularly those who are involved in agricultural livelihoods. Okay, so in the Siberian areas or in the mountainous areas or sa far north, doon sa mga maraming ice or yellow, well, they have discovered that the reindeer can be used also to pull carts. Okay, so accordingly, the reindeer is first domesticated in Siberia in the beginning of the Christian era. And they can be ridden with saddles and they drew sledges somewhat like the dog sledges of the far north. Okay, so the Siberian Huskies or the Siberian dogs. Okay, they are they are also trained to do the same thing as the reindeers. Okay, so it is also believed that the dog is the first animal domesticated. Okay, so however, the problem is they are too slight to carry heavy loads. That's why they are used as pack animals. Mas marami kasi pag mag-isa lang yan, kunti lang yung kanilang mahila or matulak. So ginagawa silang mga pack animals para mas marami silang hihila sa isang heavier loads. Okay, so what else? The donkey. So the donkey, a part of the family of horses, is first domesticated in the Middle East. Today, it is still the chief beast burden among the farmers of the Near East. Again, Near East is that doon sa Middle East area. To include na rin yung mga Afghanistan, okay, to include na rin yung mga okay, Afghanistan, I think that is in the Middle Asia. Okay, the Mediterranean area and Mexico also in southern or Central America, where it was introduced to the Mexicans by Spain. Then, of course, you have the llama, again used in the high Andes as pack animals by the Incas and their Spanish conquerors, dun sa mga bulubunduking area. Okay. Then, moving on, you have the elephants also. Okay, we see that in the movies, or if you have already seen Personally, pag nakapasyal ka na sa Thailand o nakapasyal ka na sa Africa, they were used by the Carthaginians, the African elephant in their war against Rome. So pwede siyang sakyan at kung titignan natin doon sa photograph ay pwedeng maglagay ng carriage box doon sa ibabaw nito at marami ang pwedeng sumakay. Then, of course, we are familiar with the horses as a single riding vehicle or a single riding animal with a saddle, or it can also be used as a pack animals, uh, depending on the size of the wheeled carriage. So the larger the wheeled carriage, then the more the horses are used to draw the heavy carriage. Kaya tawag natin dyan ay mga tawag natin ang horsepower. Diyan natin kinuha yung word na horsepower sa isang makina. Pag sinabing 1 horsepower na makina, well, ang equivalent niyan ay more or less yung isang power ng natural na laki na horse. Okay, so the horse, it is believed to have been domesticated in Europe. Okay, and of course, horses now are used all over the world. In the Philippines, we still have places in our country where they use horse as a chief way of transportation. Okay, so moving back again to the Middle East, particularly sa mga desert areas. Ayan, so you have the camels. They were used to draw carts and probably first domesticated in the Arabian Peninsula in the early first millennium BC. So mga ito ay may mga katangian sila na mag-store sila ng kinakain na may tubig, no, mga cactus doon sa kanilang mga sa mga sa leeg siguro or sa bunganga nila kaya nagtatagal sila sa mga mainit na lugar. So moving on, in other icy areas or maraming mga yelo, maraming mga ice, nandun yung mga yak. Ito ay family naman ng mga ox or mga cattle. A long-haired type of cattle and used as a pack animal also, or it can be used as a saddled riding animal. So the wild yak may have been tamed and domesticated by the ancient Qiang people of China. So normally nandun sa may Himalayas yan, no? Sa mga highland ng probably Mongolia, sa mga malalamig na lugar. So kung titingnan natin yung mga hayop na nagsusurvive sa mga malalamig na lugar ay mga hairy sila, no? Maraming balahibo. So magaling talaga ang Diyos sa kanyang pag-create ng mga even mga hayop, nakadesign sila sa mga climate. Sabi ng mga scientists ay nag-evolve sila. But I believe na naturally ganyan na sila na-create ng ating Panginoon. So again, in the Philippines, we are very familiar with the Carabao. By the way, the Carabao is the native Filipino word meaning the water buffalo. So hindi lang ito masarap na pagkain, no? Ito'y ginagamit din na pantulong sa pagsasaka, pag-aararo among Southeast Asian countries, even some East Asian countries. They plow fields, carry and move heavy objects, and they are even used for transportation. At kagandahan nito, pag tumanda na, mahina-hina na, ang katapat lamang niyan ay pressure cooker. Meron ka ng bulalo. So what else? Yung mga goats, mga kambing, ginagamit din yan for transportation sa ibang mga lugar. So pwedeng mga pack animals din yan or pwedeng lagyan lang yung likod. Pati mga sheep, no, ginagamit din yan for yung mga tupa for transportation. And the ostrich also ginagamit din sa transportation. Now, sa ating contemporary time, ito yung mga animal power ngayon, yan, no? So pwede nang mag-drive ang mga canine. Kaya pag tatanda ka na, mag-train ka ng aso mo or pusa mo para mag-drive para sa'yo. Ayan, yung 2 horsepower, di ba? Habang hayop yan. Okay? So you have the pig power and you have the chicken power. You have the bird power. Okay? You have the horse power. Okay? And another cow power. Ayan. Okay, so after discovering and finding ways to travel on land, so naisip din ng tao na how to use the power of the wind. So the early Chinese people, they have what you call the kites, okay, and accordingly, this was first used for transport by Koreans. So the kite was invented in China, but for transportation purposes, ito yung unang ginamit ng isang Korean general, okay, in which he employed kites in bridge building. By means of a kite, a cord was conveyed across a river where heavier ropes were fastened and finally the bridge cable. So, nilagay sa tali niya yung tali na uh, nakatali dun sa may kable, no? Kabling bakal or kabling alambre or whatever type na kable yan. Tapos yung kite ang siya magkukross sa tali at doon sa river at yung tali ay hilahin ng mga tao upang kanilang mahila yung kable, no? So and in the late 10th century, the European armies also experimented with kites in transporting men. And of course, further in Europe, uh, you have Leonardo da Vinci, his ornithopter. Orni means a bird. So he designed a flying machine na kung saan yung power pa rin ng tao saka yung wind power based on the flight of birds. Others, you have Montgolfier balloon. Okay, it was used or invented by Franz Joseph Michel and Jacques Etienne. So they used to condemn prisoners, but it was protested, no? Kasi ginagamit yan for mayroon kasi tayong punishment na tinatawag sa mga preso noong unang panahon, mga kriminal, ang tawag nila transportation. Pag sinabing transportation, dadalhin sila parang exile, no? Dalhin sila sa ibang lugar. Tulad ni Jose Rizal, siya ay in-exile doon sa Dapitan. So parang ganon, exile transportation. So meron din tinatawag na banishment. Okay? Yung para mawala yung isang kriminal. So ito, ginagamit daw accordingly itong Montgolfier balloon para uh, yung mga kriminal ay isakay dyan hanggang mawala na sila kung saan man sila dalhin ng balon na yan. Okay, so moving on, we have the Siemens rocket plane by Ernst Werner von Siemens. He designed a rocket plane that was propelled by an explosive force of gunpowder. So he made an experiment. So instead of a propeller, ang ginagamit lang ay yung uh, combustion power ng explosive materials or mga explosive substances. And of course, Santos Dumont Airship, Alberto Santos Dumont is one of the pioneers of lighter than aircraft. Experimented with the steam power balloons in Paris. So steam powered siya. So how it is being used? So tignan natin, ito yung hot air balloon, steam ang ginagamit. So we know ang physics niyan, pag mas mainit yung hangin, mas magaan, aangat siya. So on the other hand, dito sinabit sa bandang baba yung sasakyan ng tao. Okay? Then moving on, further ang pinag-isipan nila yung aerodynamics. So we have the Orville and Wilbur Wright. They built their biplane kite over 200 different wings types, which they tested in a wind tunnel of their own invention, which they conducted. And they call that the first man carrying powered machine. And of course, we know that they can be considered as the pioneers of airplane building or construction. Okay, so of course, there are more inventions sa ating mga air, which we will be discussing later on. Now, with the pandemic, with the COVID-19 situation that we have, mayroon itong tinatawag na anti-COVID-19 airplane, no? Sabi nila, para maiwasan yung mass infection, lalong-lalo sa mga public places, sa mga enclosed areas, dapat yan, iwasan yung mga enclosed spaces para mag-circulate ang hangin. Okay? Kaya ito, yung airplane na open window siya or open door siya or open cabin siya, no? Yan. So maganda yan, no? Fresh air yan. Walang COVID infection diyan. Okay? Of course, after or contemporaneous with other with other inventions and discoveries. Pag sinabi natin contemporaneous, halos sabay, no? Habang ang tao ay nagdi-discover ng mga devices para sa land transportation, diniscover na rin na kung paano gamitin yung aerodynamics. And of course, contemporaneous with those discoveries ay yung ding paggamit ng water system for transportation purposes. So of course, nakita nila pag lumulutang, so pwedeng sakyan yan at yung current ng water ang magtutulak sa kanila. Hanggang kay ginamit nila yung kanilang lakas na magsagwan hanggang naka-create ng mga ginamit, kinumbine yung yung water system at saka yung aerodynamics. So gumawa sila ng mga sail boats. Okay? So at least yung mga river and sea transport vessels ay may mga advantage diyan over the land transportation. Okay? So moving on, so ganyan din mga most likely mga unang ginamit na mga water raft or boat na mga unang mga tao noon. Then eventually, we have now just like airplanes, maliit hanggang mga jet planes ngayon. So ganun din, yung mga sea vessels mula sa mga canoe, okay, sa mga sailboats, hanggang ngayon meron tayong mga gigantic tulad ng Titanic, mas malaki pa sa Titanic na mga cruise ships natin. Again, if we are going to take a look on all those discovery in the land, in the sea, and in the air, okay, the human beings, unendingly discover and invent various methods and modes of transportation for a single goal. Ano yon? That is to satisfy their need to travel. Okay? So since very indispensable ang transportation or traveling, so kailangan gumawa. Okay? So lahat ng mga discovery ng tao sa larangan ng air, land, and sea transportation, all of those is to satisfy their need to travel. And of course, what else? If you are going to look back sa mga inventions ng tao, well, basically ay kapag misuse ang mga ito, ay maaring mag-cause ng problem or hindi ma-attain yung goal or yung purpose ng tao sa traveling. That's why later on we'll discuss traffic management insofar as dealing with the possible problems or problems on transportation. Okay? So with that, thank you very much for listening. If you have not subscribed yet this channel, please subscribe and click the notification bell. And should you have any question, feel free to type your questions in the comment section. Once again, thank you and God bless us all.